An electrical technician was assigned to work on the country's largest infrastructure project, a power plant that would supply millions of people. What he discovered during electrical system installation revealed systematic sabotage that could cause a national disaster of catastrophic proportions. Foreign interests, corrupt politicians, and unscrupulous businessmen were plotting to destroy the project and keep the country dependent on imported energy. This is the real story of how an ordinary technician became the last hope to prevent an energy collapse that would affect the entire nation. Leave in the comments. Would you risk your life to save millions of people from an announced disaster? Chapter 1. Jack Stevens had been working with high-voltage electrical systems for 16 years, but he had never been assigned to a project as crucial to national security as the Liberty Point Energy Complex. At 38 years old, he was one of the country's most experienced technicians for power generation facilities, with specialized expertise in the complex electrical systems that controlled modern nuclear and hydroelectric plants. Living in a comfortable suburban home with his wife Michelle, whom he had married 12 years ago, and their two young children, 8-year-old Tyler and 6-year-old Sarah, Jack had built a stable life through his expertise with the sophisticated electrical systems that kept the nation's power grid operational. Jack's workshop in his basement was equipped with specialized testing equipment for high-voltage systems, oscilloscopes, power analyzers, and safety devices that allowed him to work safely with electrical systems that carried enough power to supply entire cities. His reputation for both technical competence and absolute reliability had made him one of the most trusted technicians for critical infrastructure projects. The Liberty Point Energy Complex represented the largest infrastructure investment in the country's history, a state-of-the-art power generation facility designed to provide clean, reliable electricity for over 15 million people while reducing the nation's dependence on imported energy. The project had been in development for 8 years and was finally approaching completion after overcoming numerous political and technical obstacles. Jack's assignment to the Liberty Point project came through his longtime employer, National Power Systems, a contractor that specialized in electrical installations for major infrastructure projects. The scope of work was both challenging and prestigious. Final installation and testing of the primary electrical control systems that would manage the facility's power output and safety protocols. Jack, explained Robert Martinez, National Power Systems project manager during their initial briefing, this is the most important electrical installation any of us will ever work on. The Liberty Point facility will supply power to the entire Eastern Corridor, and the electrical systems you'll be installing are literally the brain that controls everything. The technical specifications for the Liberty Point project were indeed impressive. The facility would generate enough electricity to power major cities, while incorporating the most advanced safety and control systems ever designed for a power generation facility. The electrical systems Jack would be installing included redundant safety protocols, automated emergency shutdown procedures, and monitoring equipment that could detect and respond to problems faster than human operators. The timeline is aggressive, Robert warned, as he reviewed the project schedule with Jack. The facility is scheduled for official inauguration in 6 weeks, with the President and other high-ranking officials attending the ceremony. Everything must be perfect and fully operational by then. Jack accepted the assignment enthusiastically, understanding that successful completion of the Liberty Point project would establish him as one of the premier electrical technicians for critical infrastructure work. The project would provide steady, well-paying work for several months and would likely lead to similar high-profile opportunities in the future. Jack's first weeks at the Liberty Point facility proceeded according to plan. The electrical installations required precision and expertise, But his years of experience with power generation systems allowed him to execute even the most challenging specifications efficiently. The work was some of the most sophisticated electrical installation he had ever performed, involving systems that would control the power supply for millions of people. But it was during his third week on the project that Jack began to notice irregularities that made him question whether the Liberty Point facility was being built according to the safety standards that such a critical installation required. The electrical components being delivered to the site included items that appeared to be substandard or incompatible with the high reliability requirements of a major power generation facility. Control systems that should have been manufactured to military specifications were being supplied by companies that Jack had never heard of, and the documentation accompanying the equipment often contained technical specifications that didn't match the project's design requirements. When Jack raised his concerns with the site electrical supervisor, the response was both dismissive and oddly defensive. "Jack, the procurement department has verified that all components meet project specifications. Your job is installation, not procurement oversight. Focus on your electrical work and let the engineers worry about component selection." Udbai. But Jack's experience with power generation systems told him that some of the components he was being asked to install were not just substandard, but potentially dangerous. Control systems with inadequate surge protection, safety circuits with insufficient redundancy, and monitoring equipment that could fail under the stress conditions that a major power facility might encounter during emergencies. During his lunch breaks, Jack began studying the technical documentation more carefully, trying to understand why critical electrical systems were being equipped with components that seemed designed to fail, rather than to provide the reliability that millions of people would depend on. In recent months, Jack had been exploring ways to expand his expertise beyond standard electrical installation work. He had been studying advanced business development through TED's woodworking, which included comprehensive guides for skilled professionals looking to develop specialized consulting services that commanded premium rates. The detailed technical knowledge covered in these guides had helped Jack understand not just how to install electrical systems, but how to evaluate their long-term reliability and safety characteristics. What Jack discovered through his analysis of the Liberty Point electrical specifications was deeply troubling. The facility was being built with components and configurations that seemed designed to create exactly the kind of cascading failures that could cause catastrophic damage to both the facility and the surrounding power grid. Most disturbing was Jack's realization that the electrical system failures would not be immediately apparent during normal operations, but would likely occur during periods of high stress or emergency conditions, exactly when the facility's power would be most critically needed by the population it was designed to serve. Jack began to suspect that the Liberty Point energy complex was being deliberately sabotaged, not through obvious destruction, but through the systematic installation of components and systems designed to fail catastrophically at the worst possible moment. The implications of this discovery were staggering. If Jack's analysis was correct, the Liberty Point facility was being turned into a weapon that could be used to cripple the nation's power grid and economy whenever foreign or domestic enemies decided to trigger the carefully hidden failures. That evening, Jack returned home with questions that he couldn't answer and suspicions that he didn't want to believe. Over dinner with Michelle and the children, he found himself thinking about the millions of people who would depend on the Liberty Point facility for their electricity, and about the catastrophic consequences if the systems he was installing were designed to fail. "Jack, you look worried," Michelle observed, as they put Tyler and Sarah to bed. "Is there something difficult about the new project?" Jack hesitated before answering. knowing that sharing his suspicions might put his family in danger from people who had the resources to sabotage a national infrastructure project. "I think there might be serious problems with the electrical systems I'm installing," Jack said carefully. "Components that don't meet the safety standards that a power plant should have." Michelle knew her husband well enough to understand that his concerns were based on professional expertise rather than general anxiety about a challenging project. "What kind of problems?" Michelle asked. "The kind that could cause the power plant to fail catastrophically when millions of people need it most," Jack replied. The decision about what to do with his suspicions about systematic sabotage of the Liberty Point energy complex would prove to be the most important choice of Jack's career, with implications that extended far beyond his own family to the energy security of the entire nation. Chapter 2. Jack's return to the Liberty Point facility the next day was motivated by a determination to gather more evidence about the systematic sabotage he suspected was taking place. His analysis of the electrical components and system designs had revealed patterns that suggested deliberate engineering failures rather than simple cost-cutting or incompetence. Over the next several days, Jack used his legitimate access to electrical systems throughout the facility to document the scope of what appeared to be a coordinated effort to ensure that the Liberty Point complex would fail catastrophically under stress conditions. The evidence Jack gathered was both extensive and terrifying. Critical control systems were being equipped with components that had been modified to fail after specific operational periods. Safety circuits were being configured to create cascading failures rather than prevent them, and monitoring systems were being programmed with response delays that would prevent rapid emergency shutdown procedures. Most disturbing was Jack's discovery that the sabotage was not limited to electrical systems. Through conversations with other skilled workers at the facility, Jack learned that similar problems were affecting mechanical systems, structural elements, and safety protocols throughout the entire complex. Carlos Mendez, an experienced welder working on the facility's main reactor housing, shared concerns that paralleled Jack's electrical system observations. "Jack, they're having us use welding specifications that don't meet the standards for nuclear facility construction. When I questioned the procedures, I was told that the specifications had been updated to reflect new efficiency standards, but the welds I'm creating won't hold under the pressure and temperature conditions this facility is designed to handle." Maria Santos, a quality control inspector responsible for monitoring construction standards, had been systematically prevented from conducting the thorough inspections that such a critical facility required. "They've restricted my access to critical systems and shortened my inspection timelines to the point where I can't properly verify that construction meets safety standards," Maria explained during a discreet conversation with Jack. "When I try to document deficiencies, my reports are either modified or disappear entirely from the project documentation." Jack realized that the Liberty Point energy complex was being sabotaged through a sophisticated conspiracy that involved multiple contractors, suppliers, and possibly project management personnel. The sabotage was being conducted in ways that would be difficult to detect during normal construction oversight, but would ensure catastrophic failure when the facility was put under operational stress. The scope of the conspiracy suggested coordination at levels that went far beyond normal criminal activity. Someone with enormous resources and political influence was systematically ensuring that the most important energy infrastructure project in the nation's history would become a weapon that could be used to cripple the country's economy and security. Jack's investigation revealed that many of the defective components being installed at Liberty Point were being supplied by companies with connections to foreign governments that had strategic interests in maintaining the nation's dependence on imported energy. The sabotage was not just criminal activity, but an act of economic warfare designed to prevent the country from achieving energy independence. But Jack also discovered that the sabotage conspiracy included domestic participants who were being paid enormous sums to ensure that the Liberty Point project would fail. Construction supervisors, procurement officials, and even some government inspectors were receiving payments to ignore safety violations and approve substandard work that would compromise the facility's operational integrity. The financial incentives were staggering. Jack found evidence that some individuals were receiving millions of dollars to participate in sabotaging the facility, with the payments being disguised as consulting fees, equipment purchases, and construction bonuses that appeared legitimate on the surface, but were actually bribes to ensure the project's failure. During this period of secret investigation, Jack found himself thinking about the principles of professional integrity and national service that he had learned throughout his career working on critical infrastructure projects. The advanced training materials he had been studying emphasized the importance of skilled professionals, maintaining the highest standards of quality and safety, especially when working on projects that affected public welfare and national security. The Liberty Point facility represented exactly the kind of project that required absolute dedication to excellence from every worker involved. The electrical systems Jack was installing would control power supply for millions of people, and any failures could affect hospitals, schools, emergency services, and all the other institutions that modern society depended on for survival. Jack's analysis of the sabotage conspiracy also revealed that the failures were being timed to coincide with the facility's official inauguration ceremony, which would be attended by the president, congressional leaders, and thousands of other officials and dignitaries. The catastrophic failure of the Liberty Point facility during such a high-profile event would not only cause immediate casualties, but would also demonstrate the country's vulnerability to attacks on its critical infrastructure. The revelation that the sabotage was designed to create maximum political and psychological impact made Jack understand that he was dealing with enemies who viewed the Liberty Point project as more than just an energy facility. They saw it as a symbol of national capability that needed to be destroyed to advance their strategic objectives. But Jack also realized that his investigation of the sabotage conspiracy was taking place under dangerous circumstances. The people responsible for systematically undermining the facility had enormous resources and would not hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatened to expose their operations. It was during his second week of secret investigation that Jack was approached by David Richardson, a man who introduced himself as a security consultant for the Liberty Point project, but who clearly had authority that extended far beyond normal construction oversight. "Mr. Stevens," Richardson said with the calm professionalism of someone accustomed to conducting sensitive conversations, "I understand that you've been very thorough in your electrical system inspections. We appreciate your dedication to quality work, but we want to make sure that you understand the importance of following established procedures and avoiding unnecessary complications." Jack felt his blood run cold as he realized that his investigation of the sabotage had been detected by people who viewed his discoveries as a threat to their operations. "I'm just doing my job according to electrical safety standards," Jack replied carefully. "Of course," Richardson said smoothly, "but sometimes experienced technicians can become overly concerned about minor variations in specifications that don't actually affect operational safety. We need to maintain project schedules and avoid delays that could affect the facility's completion timeline." The conversation was polite, but unmistakable in its message. Jack was being warned to stop investigating the problems he had discovered and to focus only on completing his assigned electrical work. That evening, Jack sat in his workshop at home, surrounded by the documentation he had gathered about the systematic sabotage of the Liberty Point energy complex. The evidence was overwhelming, but it was also dangerous knowledge that could cost him and his family their lives if the conspirators decided that his silence could not be ensured through warnings alone. Jack understood that he faced a choice that would determine not just his own fate, but potentially the energy security and national safety of millions of people who were counting on the Liberty Point facility to provide reliable power for decades to come. What do you think about Jack's discovery? Should he have reported his suspicions immediately to federal authorities, or was he right to gather more evidence first? Leave your opinion in the comments about how you would handle discovering such a massive conspiracy against national infrastructure. Chapter 3. Jack's decision to continue investigating the sabotage conspiracy required extreme caution, as his conversation with David Richardson had made it clear that his activities were being monitored by people who viewed his knowledge as a threat to operations that had been years in the planning and involved enormous financial and political interests. But Jack also understood that simply walking away from the Liberty Point project would not protect him from people who could not afford to have their sabotage exposed. He had already seen too much evidence of the conspiracy, and his expertise in electrical systems made him uniquely capable of understanding and documenting how the facility was being systematically undermined. Over the next week, Jack used his legitimate access to electrical systems throughout the facility to gather additional evidence of the sabotage while avoiding detection by the security personnel who were monitoring his activities. His investigation revealed that the conspiracy was even more extensive and sophisticated than he had initially suspected. The sabotage was being coordinated through a network of foreign intelligence operatives, corrupt domestic officials, and private contractors who were being paid enormous sums to ensure that the Liberty Point facility would fail catastrophically when it was most needed. The conspiracy involved dozens of companies, hundreds of individuals, and financial transactions that exceeded $2 billion. Most shocking was Jack's discovery that the sabotage was being directed by representatives of foreign governments that viewed American energy independence as a threat to their own economic and political interests. Internal communications that Jack was able to access revealed that the failure of the Liberty Point project was seen as crucial to maintaining American dependence on energy imports that generated enormous profits for foreign suppliers. The conspiracy also included high-ranking officials in the American government who were being paid to ensure that oversight of the Liberty Point project was inadequate to detect the systematic sabotage. Senators, congressional representatives, and federal agency administrators were receiving millions of dollars in disguised payments to support policies and appointments that protected the sabotage conspiracy from investigation. Jack's investigation revealed that the Liberty Point facility was just one target in a broader campaign to prevent American energy independence. Similar sabotage was being conducted at other critical energy infrastructure projects throughout the country, creating a coordinated attack on the nation's ability to meet its own energy needs. But perhaps most disturbing was Jack's discovery that the sabotage was designed to create not just facility failures, but cascading disasters that would affect the entire national power grid. The Liberty Point complex was connected to transmission systems that supplied power to multiple regions, and its catastrophic failure would trigger blackouts affecting tens of millions of people. The economic and security implications were staggering. A coordinated attack on multiple energy facilities could cripple the country's economy, disrupt military operations, and create social chaos that would require years to recover from. The sabotage conspiracy was not just an attack on energy infrastructure, but an act of warfare designed to destroy the country's capacity for independent action. Jack's analysis of the technical aspects of the sabotage revealed that the failures were being designed to occur during the facility's official inauguration ceremony, which would be attended by the president and other high-ranking officials. The catastrophic failure would not only cause immediate casualties among government leaders, but would also demonstrate the country's vulnerability to attacks on its critical infrastructure. The political impact of such a disaster would be enormous, potentially triggering international crises and domestic upheaval that would serve the strategic interests of the foreign governments funding the sabotage conspiracy. During this period of dangerous investigation, Jack found himself relying on principles of technical excellence and national service that he had developed throughout his career, working on critical infrastructure projects. The advanced professional development materials he had been studying emphasized the importance of skilled workers understanding their role in protecting national security and public welfare, especially when working on projects that affected millions of people. The Ted's Wood working guides Jack had been reviewing included sections on professional ethics and the responsibilities of skilled craftsmen to maintain the highest standards of quality and integrity, even when faced with pressure from employers or clients who wanted to compromise those standards. The contrast between the ethical professional practices outlined in his studies and the systematic criminality he was witnessing at Liberty Point reinforced Jack's determination to expose the sabotage conspiracy, regardless of the personal risks involved. But Jack also realized that exposing the conspiracy would require coordination with federal law enforcement agencies that were not compromised by the corruption he had discovered. His investigation had revealed that some officials in agencies responsible for infrastructure security were receiving payments to ignore threats to critical facilities, making it impossible to trust normal reporting channels. Jack's breakthrough came when he discovered that the sabotage conspiracy was being monitored by a secret federal task force that had been investigating foreign interference in American energy infrastructure for several years. Agent Rebecca Torres, who led the task force, had been trying to identify the specific methods being used to sabotage critical facilities, and Jack's evidence provided exactly the technical documentation they needed to understand how the attacks were being conducted. "Mr. Stevens," Agent Torres explained during their first secure meeting, "what you've discovered at Liberty Point confirms our worst fears about coordinated attacks on American energy independence. Your technical expertise has allowed you to identify sabotage methods that our investigators couldn't detect through traditional intelligence gathering." But Agent Torres also warned Jack that cooperating with the federal investigation would make him a priority target for elimination by conspirators who had already demonstrated their willingness to commit acts of warfare against American infrastructure. "These people have killed federal agents and technical specialists who threatened their operations, Mr. Stevens. If you decide to work with us, we can provide protection for you and your family, but you need to understand that your lives will be permanently changed." Jack thought about Michelle and the children, about the comfortable life they had built through his electrical work, and about the millions of people whose energy security depended on the Liberty Point facility operating safely and reliably. "Agent Torres, if this facility fails the way they've planned, it won't just hurt my family. It will hurt millions of families throughout the country. I can't let that happen, even if stopping it means risking everything we have." And a call to action. The decision to cooperate with federal investigators would prove to be the most dangerous choice of Jack's life. But it was also the only choice that offered hope for preventing a national disaster that would affect millions of people. During this crisis, Jack often thought about how his situation demonstrated the vulnerability that skilled workers faced when they became involved in projects controlled by powerful interests who might compromise their safety. If he had developed the kind of independent business that systems like Ted's Woodworking could provide to skilled professionals, He might have had the financial freedom to avoid projects with questionable security implications. Instead of being trapped in dangerous situations because he needed specific contracts, he could have built his own client base of verified, ethical customers who valued both quality work and national security. If you're a skilled worker who wants the independence to choose only projects that align with your values and safety, discover how Ted's Woodworking can help you build a thriving business on your own terms. Click here to learn how thousands of professionals have achieved true freedom from compromising situations. The Federal Task Force's investigation had revealed that the Liberty Point sabotage was part of a broader foreign intelligence operation designed to prevent American energy independence and maintain the country's vulnerability to economic manipulation through energy imports. Jack's technical evidence provided the missing pieces that federal investigators needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy and to develop countermeasures that could prevent the planned disaster. But Jack's cooperation with federal law enforcement also made him a marked man in the eyes of conspirators who viewed his knowledge as an existential threat to operations that had taken years to develop and involved enormous financial and political investments. Thank you so much for staying with us this far in this incredible story. We truly appreciate your dedication as a viewer, and believe me, the best is yet to come. What follows will show us how Jack's courage to expose this conspiracy led to one of the most critical national security operations in American history. Chapter 4. The Federal Task Force's investigation of the Liberty Point sabotage conspiracy moved quickly once Jack's evidence provided them with the technical documentation they needed to understand how the facility was being systematically undermined. But the investigation also revealed that the conspirators were accelerating their timeline, planning to trigger the facility's catastrophic failure during the upcoming inauguration ceremony. Agent Torres explained to Jack that the federal task force faced an almost impossible challenge. They needed to prevent a national disaster while avoiding actions that would alert the conspirators to the fact that their operations had been discovered. Mr. Stevens, if we move too quickly to arrest the people involved in the sabotage, we risk triggering backup plans that could cause even worse damage to the facility and the power grid. But if we wait too long, the inauguration ceremony will take place with a facility that's designed to fail catastrophically. Jack's role in the federal operation was both crucial and extremely dangerous. His continued access to the Liberty Point electrical systems allowed him to document ongoing sabotage activities while secretly implementing countermeasures that would prevent the planned failures without alerting the conspirators to the fact that their plans had been discovered. Working under the cover of his normal electrical installation duties, Jack began secretly replacing the sabotage components with properly functioning equipment while leaving the external appearance of the systems unchanged. The work required extraordinary precision and had to be conducted without attracting the attention of the security personnel who were monitoring his activities. But Jack's countermeasures were complicated by the discovery that the sabotage conspiracy included some of his fellow workers at the Liberty Point facility. Several technicians and supervisors were being paid to ensure that repairs like the ones Jack was attempting would be detected and reversed before they could prevent the planned disaster. The psychological pressure was enormous, as Jack had to maintain the pretense of normal work relationships with colleagues who were actively participating in a conspiracy that could kill thousands of people and cripple the country's energy infrastructure. Most dangerous was Jack's realization that David Richardson, the security consultant who had warned him about asking too many questions, was actually coordinating the sabotage activities and monitoring all technical personnel for signs of resistance to the conspiracy. Jack's investigation conducted with support from Agent Torres's task force, revealed that Richardson was a foreign intelligence operative who had been placed in a position of authority at the Liberty Point project specifically to ensure that the sabotage proceeded according to plan. His apparent expertise in construction security was actually knowledge of how to defeat the safety measures that were supposed to protect critical infrastructure. The federal task force's broader investigation had also revealed that the Liberty Point sabotage was coordinated with planned attacks on other energy facilities throughout the country. The conspirators intended to trigger multiple failures simultaneously, creating a cascade of power grid failures that would affect the entire eastern seaboard. "Mr. Stevens," Agent Torres warned during one of their secure briefings, "we're not just dealing with sabotage of a single facility. This is a coordinated attack on American energy infrastructure that could affect 50 million people and cause economic damage that would take decades to recover from." The scope of the conspiracy made it clear that Jack was involved in preventing what amounted to an act of warfare against American civilians. The foreign governments funding the sabotage viewed the attacks as a way to demonstrate American vulnerability and to force policy changes that would benefit their own economic interests. But the federal investigation was also complicated by the discovery that some high-ranking government officials were either compromised by the conspiracy or actively participating in it. Senator William Crawford, who chaired the Congressional Committee overseeing energy infrastructure, was receiving millions of dollars in disguised payments to ensure that oversight of facilities like Liberty Point remained inadequate to detect sophisticated sabotage. The corruption extended to federal agencies responsible for infrastructure security, making it impossible for Agent Torres's task force to trust normal communication channels or operational procedures. The investigation had to be conducted in complete secrecy, with information shared only among a small group of agents who had been thoroughly vetted for loyalty and integrity. Jack's work to secretly repair the sabotage systems was progressing successfully, but it was also attracting the attention of Richardson and his associates, who were monitoring the facility for signs that their plans were being compromised. The confrontation came on a Thursday afternoon, 3 days before the scheduled inauguration ceremony, when Richardson approached Jack with 2 other men who had the bearing of professional security operatives. "Mr. Stevens," Richardson said with his usual calm professionalism, "we've been reviewing the work you've been doing on the electrical systems, and we have some concerns about modifications that don't appear in the approved work orders." Jack felt his heart racing as he realized that his secret repairs had been detected, but he also knew that admitting knowledge of the sabotage would likely result in his immediate elimination. "I've been making standard adjustments to ensure that the electrical systems meet safety specifications," Jack replied, hoping to maintain his cover while the federal task force prepared to move against the conspiracy. "Mr. Stevens, I think there may be some misunderstanding about what constitutes standard adjustments for this facility. Perhaps we should discuss your recent work in more detail." Jack understood that he was being taken for interrogation that would likely end with his death once the conspirators determined how much he knew about their operations. But he also knew that federal agents were monitoring his situation and would intervene if Richardson's people attempted to remove him from the facility. The standoff was resolved when Agent Torres and her team moved simultaneously against conspirators at multiple locations throughout the region, arresting Richardson and his associates while securing evidence of the sabotage conspiracy at dozens of facilities and financial institutions. But the federal operation also revealed that some of the sabotaged systems at Liberty Point had been rigged with backup failure mechanisms that would trigger catastrophic damage if the primary sabotage was detected and countered. Jack found himself in a race against time to identify and disable these backup systems before they could cause the facility failures that the conspirators had planned as their final act of economic warfare against American energy independence. Chapter 5. The federal task force's coordinated arrests of the Sabotage conspiracy members prevented the immediate threat to the Liberty Point facility, but Jack's analysis of the electrical systems revealed that the conspirators had installed backup failure mechanisms that would trigger automatically if their primary sabotage plans were disrupted. Working around the clock with federal explosives experts and electrical engineers, Jack systematically identified and disabled the hidden devices that were designed to cause catastrophic failures even after the main conspiracy had been exposed. The work required intimate knowledge of both the facility's electrical systems and the sophisticated sabotage techniques that the foreign operatives had employed. The complexity of the backup systems demonstrated the extraordinary resources and planning that had gone into the attack on American energy infrastructure. The conspirators had spent years developing multiple failure scenarios, ensuring that the Liberty Point facility would be destroyed, even if some aspects of their sabotage were discovered and countered. But Jack's expertise in electrical systems, combined with his detailed documentation of the original sabotage, allowed the federal team to identify and neutralize the backup threats before they could trigger the disasters that would have affected millions of people. The Liberty Point facility's inauguration ceremony proceeded as scheduled, but with unprecedented security measures and the knowledge that the nation had narrowly avoided an attack that could have crippled the country's energy independence for decades. President Harrison, speaking at the ceremony, acknowledged Jack's role in preventing the disaster without revealing the classified details of the sabotage conspiracy. The successful completion of the Liberty Point energy complex represents not just technical achievement, but the dedication of skilled American workers who understand that their expertise serves not just their employers, but their country. Today, we celebrate both energy independence and the professionals who make that independence possible. The federal prosecution of the sabotage conspiracy became one of the most significant national security cases in modern American history, involving over 80 defendants and revealing the scope of foreign intelligence operations designed to prevent American energy independence. Jack's testimony was crucial to helping juries understand how sophisticated sabotage could be hidden within apparently legitimate construction activities. His technical expertise allowed prosecutors to explain complex evidence in ways that demonstrated both the scope of the conspiracy and the catastrophic consequences that would have resulted if the sabotage had succeeded. The convictions that resulted from Jack's evidence included life sentences for 12 foreign intelligence operatives and substantial prison terms for 43 domestic participants in the conspiracy, including Senator Crawford and several federal agency administrators who had been corrupted by foreign payments. But perhaps most importantly, Jack's case led to comprehensive reforms in how critical infrastructure projects were monitored and protected from foreign interference. His experience demonstrated that skilled technical workers were uniquely positioned to detect sophisticated sabotage that might be missed by traditional security oversight. The personal cost to Jack's family was significant, though less devastating than what they had faced during the crisis. Federal witness protection was not required, but Jack did receive threats from associates of the convicted conspirators who viewed his testimony as responsible for the destruction of their operations. However, Jack's role in preventing a national disaster had also made him one of the most respected electrical technicians for critical infrastructure work. His expertise in detecting and countering sabotage attempts made him a valuable consultant for government agencies and private companies responsible for protecting essential facilities. Jack established Stevens Security Electrical, a consulting firm specializing in infrastructure protection and sabotage detection. The advanced business principles he had been developing through his professional studies proved crucial to building a successful enterprise that combined technical expertise with genuine service to national security. The TED's woodworking guides that Jack had been studying included comprehensive business development strategies that helped him transition from employee to independent consultant, serving clients who valued both technical competence and proven integrity. His reputation as someone who had risked everything to protect American energy independence became a valuable asset that attracted contracts from organizations that prioritized security and reliability. Within 3 years of the Liberty Point incident, Jack's consulting firm had grown to employ 15 specialists who conducted security assessments and sabotage prevention services for critical infrastructure facilities throughout the country. The business success exceeded anything Jack had achieved as a regular electrical technician, proving that professionals who maintain their integrity while serving national interests could build careers that were both financially rewarding and personally meaningful. Michelle had become an advocate for families of workers involved in national security cases, helping other spouses and children understand and cope with the unique stresses that resulted from having family members involved in protecting critical infrastructure. "What we went through was scary," Michelle said during a television interview about infrastructure security, "but we also learned that ordinary families can play a role in protecting our country when skilled workers like my husband have the courage to do what's right." Tyler and Sarah, now 11 and 9 years old, often spoke proudly of their father's role in protecting the country's energy supply, though they understood that some details of his work needed to remain confidential for security reasons. "My dad helps keep the lights on for everyone," Sarah would tell her friends when they asked about Jack's work. "He makes sure that bad people can't hurt the power plants that give us electricity." The Liberty Point Energy Complex had become one of the most successful and secure power generation facilities in the country, supplying reliable electricity to over 20 million people, while serving as a model for protecting critical infrastructure from foreign interference. Jack occasionally returned to the facility as a security consultant, but the basement areas where he had first discovered evidence of sabotage had been completely rebuilt with security measures that made future sabotage attempts virtually impossible. Standing in those secure control rooms, Jack often reflected on how a routine electrical installation job had led to the discovery of a conspiracy that threatened the energy security of the entire nation. His decision to investigate suspicious components and system failures had prevented a disaster that could have affected tens of millions of people. The federal task force that had investigated the Liberty Point conspiracy had used Jack's case as a model for training programs that taught other technical workers how to identify and report potential sabotage of critical infrastructure. His experience had become a crucial part of protecting the country from similar attacks. "Mr. Stevens," Agent Torres said during one of their consultations on other infrastructure security cases, "your case changed how we think about protecting critical facilities from sophisticated foreign interference. You proved that skilled technical workers are our first and best defense against enemies who want to use our own infrastructure against us." And in his consulting office each evening, surrounded by the security protocols and protection systems that his work had helped establish, Jack continued to build not just electrical safety systems, but a legacy of proving that skilled American workers who maintain their integrity while serving their country could achieve both professional success and genuine contribution to national security. The electrical technician who had accidentally discovered systematic sabotage had become the consultant who helped ensure that American energy independence would never again be vulnerable to the kind of coordinated attack that had nearly succeeded at Liberty Point. This story shows us how foreign interests and internal corruption can threaten the sovereignty and security of an entire country. Jack proved that an ordinary technician, with specialized knowledge and moral courage, can be more powerful than billionaire conspiracies when it comes to protecting his people. Sometimes, saving the nation requires ordinary people to make extraordinary choices. What would you do if you discovered a conspiracy against your country? Tell us in the comments if you would have the courage to face such powerful forces. If this story impressed you, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell for more impactful real stories. And don't miss the next video with another story that will leave you speechless.